Welcome. You are at the CCC.
Where there are no outside issues. My name is Anthony. I'm an addict and an alcoholic, another bozo on the bus, and I care about you.
My name is Jordan, and I'm an addict, and I'm always trying to make good choices.
Yes, and I'm LouiLou. My pronouns are he and him, and I'm recovering for crystal meth and alcohol, and I'm always in search of balance. Yes, and each week we strive to foster a brave space where we can engage in conversation centered around topics of recovery.
Yeah, and our intention is to hold and inspire better spaces for more people in recovery by tackling issues used to separate us.
Yes, but before we do that, please like, share, comment, subscribe.
Subscribe, tell your friends about us, tell
5
your mom
stars.
about us, go across the street, tell your neighbor about us.
Somebody.
Tell someone, anyone.
At the grocery store, the person behind the register,
Usually this part
the
goes on
bagger.
like really
go to
long.
the bagger,
We only have an hour.
your delivery person. And now the disclaimer.
Do you guys edit this or is
No,
it's free flowing.
This is
I
free
love
flowing.
it. Love it. That's the way it should be.
Yeah. And now the disclaimer, the thoughts and opinions expressed on at the CCC are ours alone. We do not represent anyone but ourselves. In other words, we're just a couple of friends behind a mic here to entertain you. And of course, everything we talk about is for general information purposes only. Wiki. How's everyone doing? How's the week? Go ahead, Anna.
I was gonna say, that's like the fine print.
It
part
is the
that
fine print.
I'm impressed how
It's super-
quickly you said that.
It's super important because on our last episode we were talking about treatment, being in treatment, and I said, "Well, I'm not in treatment because you're my therapist."
Oh. And I said, in the disclaimer.
Right.
So how's everyone's week going? How's everyone doing?
Week was really good. This past weekend, I worked for Cliff's Variety here in the Castro, and we had our 90th anniversary.
Oh.
And so it was a lot of fun. It was like I was talking to actually. If you're not in the room, you don't know that our executive director Billy Lemon is here. I was
Sitting at
talking
the
about how
table.
amazing it is and what I've learned about building bridges, and I think that's what happens with Cliff's. Cliff's is like an anchor in the community. They've been there for 90 years, and so
90 years?
yeah, to see folks coming together. So I was kind of it was kind of warm and friendly, and I had to work for 5 hours in drag. And
You were in drag?
Wow.
yes.
Being of service to your community.
Being of service.
But I had a great time. Yeah.
I'm happy to hear it, Liz.
And I took 2 days off after because like 5 hours working in drag is like
Plus
like
the
working-
heels.
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
Plus the heels.
Yeah.
I only wore the heels during my performance. I wear flats. I'm a sensible drag queen.
Yes. Good for you. Liberated.
A liberated drag
I'm
queen.
the kind of drag queen that, like
In Birkenstocks.
like when you see the women going to lunch and they're
Yeah.
going on their walk with. I bring my New Balance shoes.
I love that. Yeah. Jordan, how are you?
I'm good. My week's been good. What else was I going to say? I got a promotion at work.
Oh,
So,
congratulations.
now I'm in charge of people, which is scary, but here we
Yeah.
go. One day at a time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you, Anthony?
Yeah.
I'm really, really good. I'm really excited.
Hey, tell us what's going on. There's something happened to you.
Oh, my arm?
Yeah.
Oh.
Casually?
Oh, just casually. No one knew that until you mentioned it. So,
We want people to know and
guy,
sympathize.
gals, they, them pals. I broke my forearm yesterday. I was training for the recovery ride. Billy was there. Other people were there. And long story short, I tried to catch myself. I landed on my arm. Well, I tried to catch myself with my left arm, broke my forearm. And then Billy and I hung out in the ER for a few hours. Oh. Yeah, but I'm great.
Cute.
Otherwise,
And what is the recovery ride?
the recovery. Oh, we're doing all of this now. So the recovery ride.
It's a good idea.
Is a fundraiser. It's a fundraiser. It's in September. It is an offshoot. Can I say offshoot of the ALC life cycle, which ended last year. So donate money. So
it benefits the Castro Country Club.
it does benefit the Castro Country Club. So I am very excited because Dr. Anna Lembke is with us today. Yes. Wait, you hit the wrong button, Jordan.
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
There you go.
There we go. Okay, that's much better.
So, Dr. Lembke doesn't need an introduction, but I do have one for
you.
her. So
Thank
Dr.
you.
So Dr. Lembke's a psychiatrist, addiction medicine specialist, and professor at Stanford University School of Medicine. She serves as chair of Stanford Addiction Medicine Dual Diagnosis Clinic and has spent her career helping people understand addiction, compulsive behaviors, and the challenges of living in a world that constantly encourages us to seek more. Many listeners will know her from her best-selling book, Dopamine Nation, which explores why the pursuit of people are raising their hands. The pursuit of pleasure can so often lead to suffering and what we can do about it. Her work has been featured in major media outlets, and she is widely recognized as one of the leading voices in addiction medicine. More importantly, for today's conversation, Dr. Lembke has spent decades sitting with people who are trying to change their lives, and she's thought deeply about honesty, recovery, connection, and what actually helps people heal. So we are excited to have you with us today. Welcome, Dr. Lembke.
Welcome.
Oh, well, thank you. I am so delighted to be here and to meet all of you, and really excited for this conversation.
Yeah, me too.
I'm so excited. I'm on my best behavior.
You are.
Don't do that. Don't be on your best behavior. It's so much more fun not to be on your best behavior.
Do not encourage this. Will You'll okay. All right.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
It has to be organic.
Yeah.
So true.
So before we jump in, I wanted to start off the conversation by learning a little bit about like what brought you to addiction, like what motivated you to focus on it in the way that you have.
Gosh, yeah. Thank you for that. Like most things in my life, I got there indirectly, aiming for something else entirely. My father was a fairly high-functioning alcoholic, also a surgeon. He could go months at a time and not drink, but when he did drink, he kind of disappeared for days to weeks. Mm-hmm. And because of that, when I went into psychiatry, I said, I'll see anybody except if they have problems with drugs and alcohol. So you see some of that countertransference coming out. But then I had a case early on of a young woman I was seeing in psychotherapy. And we met weekly, and we talked about every conversation she'd ever had with her mother. And then one day, her brother called me out of the blue and said she's been in a rollover car accident. I said, oh my goodness, that's terrible. What happened? He said, well, she's been using again. And I literally didn't even understand the syntax of his sentence. I said, using what? He said, well, she's been using heroin. Isn't that what you've been treating her for? And that was when I realized that I was actually a bad psychiatrist.
Oh,
that it was out of ignorance about addiction and how to help people struggling with addiction that I was harming my patients, because it was really on me, to ask her if that was going on in her life, not on her to bring it up. And so that's when that was about 26 years ago. And I really shifted the focus of my work, and I decided to learn everything I could about how to help people with addiction. And the amazing thing about it was that when I started asking people about addiction, they were thrilled to be able to talk about it, to have a safe space where they could talk about it. And they got better. They got so much better than when I just kept shoveling, antidepressants and mood stabilizers. Not to say that there's not a role for those, there is, but it was just miraculous. And when they got better, their spouses got better, their families got better, their coworkers got better. So a lot of times people say, oh, it must be really depressing to, work in the field of addiction. I'm like, no, it's exactly the opposite. It is so hopeful and so exciting and just so humbling to see the courage and the amazing recovery that comes when people get into recovery from addiction.
Yeah. What's kept you engaged for that long?
Oh, easy.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah.
No problem at all. It's, first of all, I feel so privileged to, this sounds, it's a cliche, or it sounds like a cliche, but really to be a witness to people's journey, that people are willing to open up to me and tell me their stories. And I do really feel more like a witness than like an usher. They're doing the work. I'm just providing the human presence and the human container to kind of watch the miracles happen. And also people are just so interesting, right? No two people are the same. And so it's just amazing work, and I love it. And I just feel really lucky to be able to do it.
That's really awesome.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying, there's a lot of overlap with my work, right? So I work in hospice, and I think...
And you're a social worker.
And I'm a social worker, and every person is different. And for me, it's been really interesting to be in recovery and in hospice and see the overlap in how recovery applies to grieving, applies to, the death and dying process. And just it has slowly opened my eyes that like, recovery is applicable to not just my recovery.
Yeah. I was thinking about when you were saying, when folks started to get better, then people around them got better and whatever.
Yes.
My mom used to say when I was younger, and I always talk about this, like charity starts at home and spreads abroad. And I didn't understand. I thought it was the larger charity, but charity is here and home is here. And when I'm fine, when I'm happy and good, it's spread, I can share it with other folks. So that's amazing.
Yeah. There's such a ripple effect, right? When we make good decisions, take good actions, it's like a stone being thrown, in a pond, and you get this amazing ripple. And then more people feel like they want to, do good things and make good choices. It is incredible how that happens.
Yeah. Billy, were you going to say something? Billy's moving his hands or looking suspicious at the board.
He's producing.
Yeah.
He's listening.
Yeah, he is
kinda
listening
nice. He's like our audience of one.
Yeah. So where I wanted to take our conversation today is an ideas of honesty. So we were talking about that before we started recording. And how, one of the things that we've been talking about over the last couple of weeks is there's this line in the AA literature that says, it's only for those who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves that the program doesn't work. Mm-hmm. And so we were talking about, well, what is that about? What does it mean to not be honest with yourself? And what is the role of honesty and recovery at all?
And each of us definitely had our feelings about it. That's probably
yeah. So we all had a lot of different opinions about it. But what I was saying earlier is one of the things that I appreciated that you mentioned in Dopamine Nation was the function of honesty, and not as something that was virtuous, but that's something that actually had practical implications. So my first question is, why is honesty so important in recovery?
Yeah, great question. So let me just preface this by saying that I really learned about the value of rigorous honesty or radical honesty, where we attempt to tell the truth about all things in our life, large and small, from my patients in recovery. It was a consistent theme that I saw. Of course, people in 12-step will learn about rigorous honesty, and so they come to that through the program. But I noted that even people who didn't get into recovery through the program came to understand the benefits to them, right? This is a selfish program, the benefits to them of being honest to others. And to me, that was really fascinating, just phenomenologically, but also from a neuroscience perspective, really, really interesting. And as I began to study it, what I learned is that this rigorous honesty, this radical honesty, has very important functions in our lives. One of the first important functions is just simple awareness, right? Just being aware of what we are actually doing when we are doing it. Because the truth of the matter is that we have a remarkable ability to not be aware of what we're doing. I mean, literally not aware, if we don't focus on it and if we don't give language to it. But when we say in words to another human being, this is where I was, this is what I was doing, not only are they getting the information, we are getting the information. I mean, we're getting it in many ways for the first time. And this maps very well onto studies, so neuroscientific studies of people who have what's called a split brain phenomenon, where the corpus callosum that links the right and left hemisphere, when that gets severed, for example, and done for people with severe intractable epilepsy, then they manifest many of the kinds of things that come with the extreme denial of addiction, where they have a lack of awareness, for example, of what's going on in the right or the left hemisphere, or can't give language to what's happening, in the left hemisphere, and because language is located, in that left hemisphere. So I really think that there's a de facto sort of severing of that corpus callosum in extreme denial of addiction, and that radical honesty or rigorous honesty kind of reconnects those parts of the brain and enhances, number one, our awareness of what is actually happening. So that's the first thing, awareness. The second thing is radical honesty, rigorous honesty promotes intimacy. And intimacy is so important in life, but also in recovery. And it does that because we have this built-in extreme shame-o-meter that keeps us, right? And guys, feel free to jump in and interrupt me.
Well, the second you said shame, we were like, yes.
Yeah, sign me up. I'm there.
I also want
to.
When you were saying the radical honesty helps you with intimacy, it's like it took me a really long time to really understand what intimacy was, because I instantly wanted to just assume that was me,
fucking.
with another person, but it was like,
Oh my God, Jordan.
We have an explicit rating for a reason.
Okay, yeah. No, that's so good. No, you're right. It's like, like how do I create intimacy, right? We always talk about wanting intimacy and getting intimacy.
a lot of people talk about it, but they don't really want it, or they don't know, they're not ready for it.
I think everybody wants it. I'm going to push back on that. I think everybody in their heart of hearts wants it, but they just don't quite know how to get it. I don't know. I mean,
No, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we all really want the same things in the end, but we are afraid though of getting the things we want, the things that we really want in a weird way.
Yeah, because when you get them, you got to deal with them.
Yeah, right. And then it's like, or it's like, is that all?
I know. Oh, yes, exactly. Oh my God, you mean to tell me that's what I was
really? That's all you get? All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about awareness. The second thing is intimacy. So here's the thing. We think that when we are honest about our mistakes, our foibles, our transgressions, our shameful behaviors, that people will run away from us screaming and never want to have anything to do with us again. But in reality, the opposite is true. When we authentically share our deepest, shameful sadness, anger, whatever it is, that is exactly what pulls people in and you have to experience it to believe it, because for reasons that I'm not entirely clear about, we really have evolved to avoid telling people what we really think and feel, and in this very performative way, trying to appear better than we actually are. And it probably has to do with being in a tribe and feeling like where you are in the social hierarchy is going to determine your fitness for survival, blah, blah, blah. But really, intimacy is created by authentic honesty. And this isn't like peddled honesty where you're manipulating an audience by, sort of performative vulnerability.
And that happens a lot.
It does. Yeah. And more with social media. But it's really like it's really hard when it's the hard thing to say, but it brings people in. It's so incredible and so wonderful. It's also why I think 12-step, meetings are such wonderful and safe spaces, because people are like, yeah, I'm messed up. Yeah, I'm messed up too. And we're all messed up, so it's just so refreshing.
Don't you think it helps you pull your people in? Because I think that with this idea of a tribe, like when you were talking, I was thinking, me being honest, radically honest, me putting it out there sometimes is a way to, if you can't handle it, then the responsibility is mine to I don't need to force it on you. I just need you to know that this is how I'm going to show up.
So kind of like a filter for you to figure out who are my people, who are the people that are really going to be there for me. Absolutely. Yeah, I get that. I get that. Yeah, that makes sense.
I guess I fear being so honest that I push people away, or I then have to face the consequences of my honesty.
Well, sure. You know that's one of the huge deterrents to honesty, is that we have to stop that. Once we tell people, then part of that is that we have to try to not do that thing again, right? So a big incentive to not share is that then we get to keep doing that behavior that on some level we don't want to stop. Just from my own experience, quite recently, I'm a mother, and my daughter had this kind of chronic injury, and I could sense she was lying to me about it. So what did I do? Being, a bona fide codependent, I started to read her diary, because I thought if I just knew, if I knew, I know, terrible, absolutely terrible. And so what happened as a result of that? Well, she was lying, she still had her injury and she wasn't telling me the truth. But now I had all this information plus some other information that she definitely didn't want me to know about. And then that informed my communication with her, which basically then was fake, which then led to the gradual but steady erosion of what had previously been quite an intimate relationship. And I saw it happening, and I knew it, it was not good and that I had to be truthful with her, but I didn't want to. Why? Because I didn't actually want to stop reading her diary.
Yeah.
There was a part of me that wanted to still have access to that information. So, but I did eventually tell the truth.
Yeah.
And stop reading her diary. Yeah.
What you're reminding me of is, so I'm thinking about how different communities might have different ways or different reasons why they don't tell the truth. Right.
Yeah, good point.
Right. Because withholding the truth can serve like a protective function.
Or survival function.
A survival function, right. Or like just being in environments where like secrecy is just kind of woven into like maybe a family system. But specifically, I was thinking about like queer folks. And if you think about like, if you're in San Francisco and a lot of the like queer folks that you meet here, they're usually from other places in the country, right? There are actually very few people.
Yeah, we all came here to be
gay, to be
fabulous,
To be in drag and flats at work.
to be in drag wearing New Balance.
Love it.
Yeah.
I was looking for the sprinkle.
Oh yeah.
Billy's
Can
asleep
never
at
have
the
too
wheel.
many
No.
sprinkles. So true.
But so what I'm getting to is that so there's this guy. His name is Trevor Hope. He's a scholar at University of Michigan.
I know
and
him.
Do you?
Yes, I do.
Trevor Hope. Okay, well,
I worked with him at UCSF.
Is this also kind of like the Betty Ford conversation, where no one knows what we're talking about?
Right.
But where did you know? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I worked with him. I worked with him at UCSF. It's like the name popped up. It's like,
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So he wrote this really awesome article. It was called Channeling the Bitch. And it was about how he was in New York City. I think he was in New York City, and he noticed that like a lot of the queer men were being really mean to each other. And he was like, what's going on here? And his hypothesis was that, they were that a lot of queer men were in environments where they couldn't be themselves, where they had to develop sharp tongues in order to survive. And so then they move to cities like San Francisco or New York City or Miami, and the defense never comes down.
No, not at all.
Right. It never comes down. And so what I'm getting at is that like the honesty part, like I feel like there's two things going on there. One is, if you've spent so much of your life on the defensive, it's really hard to know where you are. Right. And then the other part of that is like, what does it take in order to feel safe in relationship, which is going back to your part, which is if you're surrounded by other people who feel like incapable of being honest, it's just like a bunch of trauma being kind of circulated.
Yeah. Right. Because all it takes is one thing to repeat, right?
Yeah.
Trauma to say, oh, fuck it, I'm not going to go back to these people, which I have done multiple times.
I'm familiar with your work.
I'm just gonna say it. It's like,
What?
I feel like there are times where I really am grateful for my addiction, for my alcoholism.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Because, and I say this because, well, obviously, if I was actively in it, this wouldn't make any sense. But because I found a recovery, then I
Oh, excuse
awareness. Because there were things that I just didn't, I just thought was norm. This is who I am.
Oh yeah.
Bitchy Lewis,
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to get you before you get me.
Right.
Okay.
But it's
You heard me.
necessary. Yeah, I got her. I pay attention to everything.
Okay.
But because I'm actively in this, I get to do the work. I have a reason. It's like I always marvel at folks who are not in recovery who focus in on this. It's like, is it natural? Was I just missing that something? But I am grateful that, I used to hear that like when I came in. I'm so grateful to be But I understand that now because I'm working on stuff that like, I realize I probably, I don't even want to imagine. I could see myself still being on my bar stool at that bar up there doing what I was doing, which was nothing.
Right, right. Yeah, no, I've heard that so many times, from patients over the years in sustained recovery, how grateful they are because of the wisdom, and the practices and the friendships that they have in their lives that they never would have had they not had their disease and then gotten into recovery. But getting back to sort of the safe environment, I think that's a really important point. So many people, what I've seen is that many people who become addicted grew up in lying families. So lying was normative. with their caregivers. And so, as you say, these kinds of protective, defensive mechanisms that we learn in childhood, it's very hard to stop doing them even when they're no longer adaptive. But your point really is that they can be adaptive. So lying can be a useful and adaptive skill in a toxic environment. The key is to try to get out of that toxic environment if and when you're able, and get into an environment where telling the truth becomes what we call a club good. What are club goods? These are the intangible social goods that people get from being in a human community. And this is where, again, I really call out 12-step, because 12-step explicitly values rigorous honesty, radical honesty as a club good. They call it out, right? They, as you open with, right? They say this is part of what you need in order to get into recovery. And I would contend that it's really what every human community needs in order to be a healthy human community. And the sort of a contradistinction here, I'm just going to throw it out there, is a big problem currently in the modern world with some faith-based communities is that there's this idea that, it's like sort of the gospel according to your lived experience. And if you were to admit that your life wasn't perfect, you would then somehow be admitting that the community wasn't perfect, or the faith wasn't perfect, or that you weren't perfectly faithful. So you end up getting a lot of people in what should be the very community, where they could reveal this and get support,
Absolutely. Being
the community where they feel shunned, where they feel they have to lie in order to maintain, belonging. But, the good news here is that, like, the recovery community is now informing many faith-based communities about how to do it differently by really emphasizing, like, you have to create a culture where you encourage people to tell the truth and then don't punish them for doing that.
That's really good. So a couple weeks ago, we were actually talking about how it's really hard for people who are newcomers in AA, right? So if someone had a return to use and then they have to raise their hand again, right? And so some of the tension around that conversation is that can feel very shaming, right?
Oh, yeah.
It can feel very shaming. And then, what is the function of shame? And is it really necessary for someone to raise their hand?
Yes. Inquiring minds are wanting to know.
Okay, so so this leads into what I think is a whole fascinating literature in behavioral economics. There's a wonderful paper out there by Lawrence Iannacone. He's a behavioral economist, and it's called Why Strict Churches Are Strong. And he's done a whole economic analysis comparing churches, and by that he's using the broad term churches, any faith-based organization, Jewish, Muslim, Christian, where there are very strict rules about dress, about commitment in the amount of time you have to spend going, about unusual hairstyles or clothing that distinguish you from others. And then he compares that to more liberal faith-based organizations where you can wear whatever you want, you can come now and then, anything kind of goes, you can make it up as you go along. And you would think sort of, you just intuitively that, like, the easygoing faith-based organizations would have more people in them because, like, it's the filter's wide open. The opposite is true. The opposite is true. It is the rigorous and strict organizations where you have higher attendance, more group participation, growth of that faith-based community. And why is that? And his theory is because there is no way to measure the actual value of club goods, that is, those intangible rewards of belonging to a human community, except through sacrifice and stigma. How much you sacrifice for the group and how much you're basically willing to be stigmatized for belonging to that group. And AA is, a great example of that. I'm an alcoholic. That's a stigmatized identity, right? So you have to be willing to go to a meeting and say, like, yeah, I'm one of you people, right? And then number one, you got to go to 30 and 30, 60 and 60, 90 and 90. You got to get your chips. You got to be rigorously honest, right? That's part of the payment in a way to create those club goods. So back to your meeting where the newcomer comes back and said, do they have to raise their hand and said, I relapsed on the newcomer? They absolutely do. Because when they don't do that, they're not just compromising their own recovery, they're eroding the club goods of that very community.
Just
Wow, that's one way to
that
look
is
at
really.
it.
This is one way
I've
to look
never
at it.
heard. I've never heard that argument.
really-
before.
yeah, I appreciate that.
We need to bottle that up and
Yeah.
take it to every meeting. We're gonna.
I sense
Yeah.
there's a difference of opinion
Well,
here
yeah,
about that.
I'll go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you
So,
go. You tell me your thing.
so
yeah.
I've always been on this soapbox of like, I don't need to raise my hand because the people that need to know, right? And then, and in my experience too, I feel like there is, especially in, I think, our queer recovery group, which is a little smaller of a circle, that like there is some shame attached to it. There is some judgment attached to, he raised his hand again. Like they're doing the Statue of Liberty, you know?
I never heard that one.
You know, and so things like that, where it's like, it's like you were saying earlier, it's this built-in shame, right? Instead of including and being comforting, there is this built-in kind of negativity towards being a newcomer, especially when you keep coming back and coming back and coming back, right? And so for me, it seems like, well, it just seems more hassle to put myself out there to be judged in front of everybody rather than just maintaining my inner circle and having them be the support that I already know that they are.
Okay, so there's something really important in what you just said. I still disagree with you. Like in terms of, I think it's absolutely vital for that person, and even more vital for the community. They're like doing this,
that's
clicking their hand, right? To declare yourself as a newcomer and do it openly, even though yes, totally suffusing with shame, right? Really hard. But you make a very important point, which comes up a lot, and it's this whole idea of chronic relapsers in AA. And how, in general, it is a place where you can chronically relapse and be welcomed, and should be that place where you keep coming back, work and it works for you, all that stuff. But there can be this sort of malignant shame or destructive shame cycle in AA with chronic relapsers, where it's kind of gets to be sort of like faith-based organization. Well, you're not working the program hard enough, or or you're not having the spiritual transformation, or you're not embracing the right kind of higher power. So definitely, these types of problems, because humans are just so complicated and just like generally, in my opinion, we're just all so messed up and vulnerable that we'll complicate anything, even a really good thing. But still, I think that the trump card is still that rigorous honesty, even though it's really hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thoughts, Jordan? I mean, you can have them.
I know.
We'll just edit them out.
We
just won't air them.
When we have the conversation, like I want to come from a place of understanding, and I don't want to be that judge, but I know that I'm capable of it. But I also think that for the individual who is a chronic relapser, when they come in, a lot of times, rather than paying attention to the group as a whole, they might just be focusing in on the people that are kind of supporting the narrative that they've got in their mind going.
Good point.
And so to make a blanket statement that this, that, and whatever, this is why and that's why I have to sit back and say, okay, don't take it, don't bite, listen, just listen, take it in, and then beat them up after the podcast.
Right. No, but that makes me think about something else too. Like if you're in a larger meeting and then you're just sort of saying, well, my in group, the people that need to know, no, I'm so sorry, we're kind of.
It's okay.
We do this all the time.
Then what's happening is then you've got groups within groups, right?
For sure.
And then and
that's another problem.
Yeah.
Yes.
That can be another problem.
Right.
And he doesn't let other people in his group.
Well, no, but it turns into high school, right? A little bit where you have these different things.
Billy, did you want to say something?
Here's the mic.
Go ahead, Billy. Yeah. So this is Billy.
So this, I was going to be quiet, but this one actually speaks to me.
Oh boy.
Okay,
So,
let's hear it.
What I try and tell people when they are struggling with this is that inside of that group, there are always going to be more people that are excited to see you and feel a sense of warmth and love for you in the room. And there are going to be less of the queenie meanies, but sometimes they are loud and obnoxious and easy to notice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Say that.
Say that.
Great
That's
point.
my little part. They're easier to see, but there's always more love.
Great point. And I would also just add, if you look at it from the perspective of behavioral economics and club goods, when you get up, even though it's painful for you to say I've relapsed and I'm declaring myself as a newcomer, it is so incredibly valuable for the group.
Yep.
And it massively augments club goods.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And it's not Schadenfreude. It's like, okay, it can happen to anybody. We're all vulnerable. We're here, and I'm here to help. I'm here to help and be helped. So I think it's just really, really important.
Absolutely. And that was the experience I had. I've shared this before. Years ago, I had relapsed and I didn't want to raise my hand. And I was sitting next to my friend Jason. And so my sponsor was on the other side. Jason was here, and I didn't raise my hand. And my sponsor was like, "Why didn't you raise your hand?" And then so then Jason goes, why don't you want to raise your hand? I was like, I'm just so embarrassed. And he goes, girl, you know how many times I've relapsed? Raise your hand. And so it was like the first time I had someone outside of me who was like, hey, it's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine. People relapse. I've done it a bunch of times. And that's what brought me back every single time.
Yeah.
I told Jason that we mention that every episode.
It's one of the,
no, I love it.
It was so life-changing for me. I mean, here I am over 10 years ago, 10 years later, and I still think about it.
Yeah, right. It becomes like almost like an object in your mind, right? That you continue to go back to, that gives you hope and strength, and that kind of knowing you can be broken and vulnerable and still be loved and accepted.
Absolutely.
And it's so key.
Yeah. Before we move off of that, there's the idea of like being vulnerable. So there's this quote, one of my favorite poets is this guy, Octavio Paz. One of the things he says is that
Telemundo. Go ahead.
Octavio Paz.
He has to.
Burrito.
Did you just say burrito?
Quesadilla.
Do you speak Spanish? That's really
No,
good.
no.
Tacos. So he says that, I'm paraphrasing, but he says that love is mutual surrender, that it can only happen when there's surrender on both sides.
Right.
And I think similarly, it's the same thing with, I think, vulnerability and honesty is that, at least in my opinion, that if you have one person who, open heart and another person who's closed off, that can feel very damaging. And that's why I think it's so important to find those people, right? Like you go to meetings regularly, you find those people, you go on a fact-finding mission and you realize like, okay, these are the people that I can let my hair down with, or these are the people that I can breathe easier around with. And I think, and like in retrospect, that's, I think, one of the most exciting things that can come from recovery.
Absolutely.
Right.
Go where the water is warmest.
Yeah. Last question before we go into some other stuff. But one of the things that I was thinking about is like, if we're talking about honesty, right? Especially when people are doing a fourth step, it's like, how do we move toward honesty without the self-judgment, right? Like, how do we look at the things that like either embarrass us or we feel shame about and not get overwhelmed by judgment? The kind of judgment that we would
Private
point
therapy.
toward
I don't know.
Well, I think this is why the benefit or the gift of having a sponsor that you trust. Like when I work with others, I used to want to rush and get to that part so I could say I did something, and I like to take my time. I'm reminded that I'm not on my time, I'm on their time, because we need to build a relationship before we get to the point where you're starting to be honest. And so I feel like there has to be some of that. Like you have to feel it, then you have someone who's gone through it and say, "Hey, I've experienced this, and I could." Because isn't it Winston Churchill said the only way to go through something is to go through it?
Yeah.
Like as much as I don't want to experience it, as much as I don't want to feel it, this is why. Like I ran so often, but the gift for me for my recovery is that I'm able to face stuff
right
in a way that I never did. I
Right.
used against it. I drank against it.
Right.
I ate against it. I had sex against it. But now I get to face it and come out on the other end and be okay.
Oh, yeah. I totally agree. I think the more we run away from our pain and our shame, it like feeds the monster. I mean, the visual for me is like running away and having this monster just get bigger and bigger as we run. But the moment we stop and turn and face the monster, we realize, oh God, yeah, it's not that bad. Or like, we're all human, or everybody has done things that they feel shame about. You know, we all have. There's nobody who's an exception to this. And if they don't have that experience, they're a sociopath.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's not anybody
Right.
you would
That's so
want to have
real.
anything to do with.
Yeah, 100%.
We always say if it has a name for it, that means it's already been done. So get over yourself.
Yeah. Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And yet, amazingly, I think we can all still get in our shame funk. You know, where it's like, for whatever reason, I don't know, didn't get enough sleep, or somebody just looks at us sideways, or we say hi to somebody and then they don't say hi back. And then we're like, oh no, they don't like me, or, oh God, it's just so like this happened to me this morning. So in Dopamine Nation, I made a little error early on with some of the neuroscience. I've since corrected it. But I was pointed out to me by a reader who's also a researcher. And when I first got that email about 3 or 4 years ago, oh my God, the shame and the terror,
Oh
like
God,
I had
I
made
imagine.
a mistake, right? And just this morning, I heard from him again. And so anyway, I immediately responded. I said, let me look at that. And I looked at it and I was like, I wrote him back immediately. I was like, you're right. I made a mistake. I'm going to correct it in the book. This morning, he emails me and says, I'm just about to come out with my paper in my book about, essentially, partially what this mistake you made. And I said to him, well, as I told you, first I said, well, thanks for giving me an opportunity to clarify. And I did correct the book, the graphic and that passage in the book, very, very small passage, but I did correct it. And they asked me a few questions and I clarified, and I sent it back to him. But like, oh my gosh, just spinning and spiral, couldn't do anything else, tried to continue with my work, couldn't, this kind of like cloud. It's just incredible. Just what a powerful emotion it is, really.
Oh yeah, Monday through Friday.
Yeah, right. Like, right.
This
I just
morning.
easily resurrected. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What you're reminding me of is it's like a very ancient wisdom about and like in Vedanta, which is it's a form of Hinduism. They say we are transformed not by what we turn away from, but what we turn toward.
Right.
Yeah, which is very much what I'm hearing there. So I wanted to talk a little bit about like the difference between abstinence versus like harm reduction. One of the things that I absolutely appreciated about Dopamine Nation, and this is actually what made me apply to the postdoc, was the conversation. That's actually how I found it. So that was I'll punch you. So it was the first time I had read someone write that abstinence doesn't always have to be the answer. And I think the research that was cited was that there has been evidence of people going through a temporary moment of detox or abstinence who are then able to turn, who can go back to like responsible drinking, et cetera. So the question there then is like, how do we know whether or not that applies to a person?
Well, let me first say that in my experience, it's many fewer people who can do it than think they can do it. So right there.
Hallelujah.
Yeah. So there's like a whole bunch of people try that, and then they try it again, and then they try it again until they finally realize, oh, I guess abstinence really is my only option. But having said that, I have had a very small handful of folks over the years who have been addicted, and then after many years of abstinence and recovery, and that's important, after a long time of abstinence and recovery, were able to go back to using their drug of choice, in some degree of moderation with enormous effort and self-binding. And I think that's really the key. So much effort, in fact, that they actually decided it wasn't worth it.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Interesting.
That abstinence was easier ultimately and also better. But it is true that some people, have been able to, do that, at least with some substances like alcohol.
Isn't it also like, and I think we talked about this because we've had a 3-part series on bridging the divide between harm reduction and abstinence. And first we had to completely understand what we each meant about harm
So
reduction
true.
and abstinence
Yeah.
or whatever, because
the language is just evolving.
yeah,
right.
the second one it got a little heated and we talked about other stuff.
Right.
I had to think of it. It's this, the whole going back. It's the state of mind of the individual and maybe what they're willing to deal with, because I can imagine that somebody would go back to say they're okay going back to usage, but their life to me is a complete mess,
Right.
and unmanageable, and so
Right.
it's like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I was on this moderation management radio show with a guy who had gotten into recovery in AA for his alcohol addiction, and then eventually left AA to go back to drinking, quote unquote, in moderation. So we're having this whole conversation, on his show for like 45 minutes, and then finally it occurred to me to ask him, well, what does moderation look like for you? And he said, well, once a week on Fridays, I lock myself in my apartment and I drink myself to oblivion. And I just thought, okay, I don't think that would be any that would not meet any medical definition of moderation. But that was his definition. So your point about like language and what are we actually talking about here? And some of that data too, on moderation, some of those studies, again, they were all subjective survey studies. We do have good data on what quote unquote moderate alcohol consumption looks like. No more than 7 drinks per week, or 2 or 3 on any given day for a woman. And probably a man too, although sometimes the numbers are a little bit higher for men.
That was a regular night.
Right, exactly.
Seven was like, what do they call the kids call it now? Like
pregame.
Pre-gaming?
That was pre-gaming.
What the kids call it.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
Nonetheless, the discussion of moderation is vital today because there are drugs of choice that people can't abstain from.
Yeah.
Like if you have a food addiction, you can't just not eat.
Yeah.
If you have a sex addiction, like people should be able to have, rewarding sex in their lives. So how do you do that, right? Tech addiction, like most of us have to be on some kind of device.
Oh yeah.
So I think this discussion, although it's very explosive and triggering for a lot of folks in recovery, and I understand why, and a little bit for me too, is nonetheless like really important to have because of how almost everything has become a drug in one sense or another, including stuff that we just can't just like walk away from.
And the fact that if we're not careful, it's so kind of nuanced. Like I let go of one thing, and I'm over here caught up and acting addictively with something else, and I'm thinking that I'm okay, but I'm not really like addressing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
One of the things that I think we struggle with as a podcast is that sometimes when we have conversations, we try not to make them 100% 12-step. So we've had episodes, we've had like different paths for recovery where we've talked about moderation management. We've talked about secular organizations for recovery, women in recovery.
Shout out to Gus. He really enjoyed
Smart.
that.
I mean, well, thank you, Gus. So here's the thing is that I know, so I often feel stuck when thinking about different paths to recovery. I know, for example, like we have a lot of, there's medically assisted treatment I feel like that's been most pronounced within like maybe the last 10 years. But not everyone knows about it. There's certain addictions that like lend themselves better to that. But does that mean that, those folks are just relying on pharmaceuticals and not making behavioral changes? So I was just kind of curious about like what your thoughts are about different paths of approaching recovery or sobriety in general.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll just invoke Pope John here. Who am I to judge?
Right.
Right. Yeah. And there are many, many paths to the top of the mountain.
That's right.
And what works for one person may not work for another. What we need to have is access to all of the different options for all of the different people, each of whom is going to have like their own unique journey. But what we don't want to do is be lying to ourselves about where we really are in our recovery. And that I think is where it can get complicated.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. It's another way of saying it's like the program that's for you is the program that works.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I wanted to talk transition a little bit to thinking about kind of like the future of addiction medicine. what are your thoughts about kind of where we are now, and where do you see us going?
Ooh, well, I hope, just to sort of, as I said, that we build a more robust infrastructure inside the House of Medicine in particular, where I work, because for a long time there has not been a robust infrastructure to treat people with addiction. You can walk into an emergency room and have a lot of serious chronic problems with behavioral components, where we have extensive algorithms to treat them, whether it's type 2 diabetes or certain forms of heart disease, chronic kidney disease. Every doctor on the planet knows what to do. Somebody walks in and says, I have addiction, will you help me? And most doctors are like, no, do not have any idea how to help you. You're in the wrong place. So we need more of that. And I think there's been a lot of progress in the past 15 to 20 years, but we still need more. And we need new treatments. We always need new treatments, but we need to be sure that we have the evidence to support them before we roll them out. I'm always worried about sort of putting the cart in front of the horse with that. And then I've been, as you know, quite focused on process addictions or behavioral addictions, especially to digital media. And that is a big concern because I really only see that getting worse. I talk a lot about that in Dopamine Nation, the sort of drugification of every aspect of life and how people can now gamble on anything. What's really continues to puzzle me so much is that we don't talk enough about pornography, especially kids, very young kids getting very early access. And I'm so distressed by this, and yet very little seems to be happening in terms of reining in those companies, creating guardrails for kids. I'm mystified why we are not in more of an uproar about this. But
oh yeah, we've talked about that before. Do we even go there right now? But but there is. I've thought about that a lot too. Sex and love addiction. Those meetings exist in San Francisco, and sometimes I wonder what's the line, and is there a line between healthy kind of liberated sexuality and compulsive addictive sexuality?
Absolutely. I mean, this is not, again, no judgment here,
right.
and people can, consenting adults can engage in all kinds of different kinds of sex and view pornography and do all kinds of things. That's fine. But if it's a compulsive use disorder and an addiction, it can be very life-threatening, very destructive. And those folks need help. And if it's a kid, I just think we would all generally agree that there are certain images that a very young child should probably not see until they're older.
Absolutely.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. Were there?
No, that's.
We're waiting for the counter.
I agree. No. Well, I mean, okay. Let's back up. So I also used to work at a middle school, and I taught sex ed for many years. And there's some mindset of well, if you can't beat them, join them, right? So I'm not gonna prevent kids from looking on the internet because it's everywhere. They can find it when they really want it, right? So how do you be smart about it? Which I think is this other idea of maybe harm reduction in this pornography thing, right? Is right. Okay, well, how do you safely watch porn as a kid or even as an adult, right? So yeah, that's always my question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just, it's a great point. What I would say though to counter that is most people who drink alcohol do not become addicted to alcohol, right? And that's a legal drug. And the same thing with pornography. Most kids exposed to porn probably won't develop a porn addiction, right? But there is going to be a subset of kids who develops a very serious, very debilitating porn addiction and has very serious consequences. So it's a question of what are we as a society going to decide about this particular drug and if and how to regulate it. And in my opinion, I would just say it needs to be regulated. We don't let kids buy alcohol. We don't let them go into casinos and gamble. We don't let them buy cigarettes. Those are all legal drugs. We don't let kids get them. And I just think we have to have the same attitude about pornography. Now, that's my opinion.
Yeah, I was thinking about as much as I hate the idea of not having as much access to it as possible. It does.
Good
it does
for you.
need, no, but it does need to be regulated. Just like a lot of things that in the beginning it was like, yay.
Right.
Going back to like FaceTime.
Right.
When it first started, I used to be really excited, and we have this like, kind of attitude and energy at the club where people need to have their privacy. Regardless, it's like it does not matter how open and out I am about stuff. And so a policy was, I'm so proud, a policy was established about that and added to that's on the wall now at the Castro Country Club, because I would sign on and I'm all, well, if you're in my shot, you're in my shot. You have no choice. But
Wait, so what's the policy?
Yeah, what is it?
What people have to be, it's ideally no.
No, what? No.
No FaceTiming, no filming.
Really,
Nice.
what you're doing is like if you're not,
Right.
if folks are not aware of what's going on,
Right.
then it's kind of like, I can do it if people are in agreement.
Right.
But if I'm coming through and adding you to my live stream just because that's a violation of like,
Right. That space, right?
Yeah,
It detracts from those club goods, right?
Absolutely,
You don't feel
exactly.
space. Yeah, safe. Yeah.
Yeah. Last thing, I just commenting on the pornography. I know I'm keeping time here.
I
too.
got you.
So the last thing about pornography, what I'm thinking about is, so sure, we can talk about like the addictive parts of it. What I am concerned about, especially when it comes to children or young adults, is how pornography is an inaccurate representation of sexuality. It has implications for how someone can see themselves and sex in general. And I think that by itself is like reason enough. That we should have guardrails around that. I think the other thing that's really interesting is that when we're talking about like consumer awareness is the way that AI is now shaping pornography and how I think that has certain implications for how people how like adults are going to see themselves, which is like what we were experiencing with Instagram before we had like AI. And there was
Well, we're
like, all
experiencing
the
with
filtering.
Barbies before that,
Right.
Right. Yeah.
So I think there's
I mutilated my Barbies on a regular. Plus, I did make them make out. There was a lot of sex with the Barbies.
there were a lot of very complicated situations.
Especially given the lack of genitalia. But anyway,
I think my driving motivator and all this is like,
Yeah.
I feel like the kids are being robbed of the innocence that I got to appreciate. Like we didn't have to think about like a lot of things. I got to just be a kid. And obviously later on I got to be other things, but but yeah, no, it's unfortunate.
Yeah. So as we're starting to land the plane, I think maybe one thing I'd like to do is if there's from this conversation, if there was one thing that you would want listeners to hold on to from our conversation today, like what might that be?
well, I think I'm going to go back to the beginning in our discussion of radical honesty and what gifts it brings, including number one, awareness, number two, intimacy, and then number three, I didn't quite get to it, but I just want to add it in there. The way that we narrate our lives, what we say about what we've done is not just a way to organize the past. It actually becomes a roadmap for the future. So when we're telling truthful stories about our lives, we have a better roadmap going forward. We have more data to make better informed decisions. So it's just, there are so many benefits to radical honesty. The short-term shame and consequences is hard, but it is so much better in the long term.
Yeah, agreed. How about everyone else at the table? Anything that you want listeners to take away?
What about you?
Yeah, Jordan. Okay.
Make good choices. I don't know. No, I don't know. Where do I want to go with this? It's something for me to go home and think about, right? Just how do I work through that, my own shame of that uncomfortability that has taken me out so many times, because I've always said this too, like I can, like when rubber meets the road, when I have to do something like find a new job or whatever, find a place to live, like I can do that. Right. But when I'm just a little bit inconvenienced or a little bit uncomfortable, then I like freak out. And then that's when I'll use over that, or it ruins my whole fucking day. Right. So how do I manage that uncomfortability, that inconvenience enough so that it doesn't take me out? Is like, I don't know. That's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Cause I sort of feel like we've piled on a little bit, this conversation a little bit on you. And I was wondering.
Oh, can you say that again for the other two? Yeah.
Right. And I seriously was I wondering like we made you feel some shame in this conversation. I did actually worry about that, but that's the $1 million question. Like, what do you do in that moment? What do you do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
you're asking me?
Yeah,
oh God.
Yeah. Because I want to learn.
I mean, I think the correct answer is to call somebody, but in practice, it has really been like, let me take care of myself.
That's, in my opinion, that's been my problem.
Yeah, 100%.
Like when it becomes, I'm going to take care of myself. I'm not going to talk to anyone. I'm going to isolate. That's when I start to spiral.
Tell you what I did.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's like I have this practice. I call my sponsor every day, and I don't call my sponsor for my sponsor because I get his voice machine and I just talk about what I've got planned for the day.
Right.
And it's become so easy to pick up the phone and talk to people, and then also it's like to find somebody. I have at least one person that I tell everything to.
Oh yeah. You got to have someone like that in your life. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been very lovely.
Oh, how about you?
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah.
I was trying to escape past that.
No. We're not going to let you.
I think if there's anything that I would want folks to take away is that it doesn't have to move so quickly, that you can slow down. And when we slow down, I think things become clearer. And part of that is like allowing shame to subside or allowing whatever is there to come to the surface, and then you take it as it comes up. I think we get into trouble when we try to move too fast.
Great point. Yeah, great point.
I just want to encourage everybody, like I always say, to have the conversation. I think that's one of the things that I'm always really excited about this medium, being able to have the conversation, even if you don't feel like you have much to bring to it. You bring yourself and your experience.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. So before we wrap up, Dr. Lembke, is there anything that's coming up, exciting places that we can like learn more about you, or is there anything like we can go?
Shameless plugs.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, gosh, thank you. Well, I'm not on social media because I wouldn't be able to handle it. I know that about
same.
myself. I wouldn't be able to moderate, so never went there. But I do have a new book coming out in November, and it is called Radical Surrender, Letting Go in a World Addicted to Control. So, and in
that's a title. I love that.
I like that title.
That's really good.
It's a title. It's a mouthful. So in Dopamine Nation, I originally did have a chapter on spiritual surrender, but I just couldn't do it justice, so I ended up dropping it out. So this is kind of my attempt to sort of talk about the role of spirituality and just getting back to what you were saying, like what do you in that moment where you're feeling that shame spiral, or something went wrong and you just, it's hard to come out of it. I do think the spiritual pivot there can be very, very helpful. So that's what I'm kind of trying to communicate with that new book.
That's so exciting. So what's the title again?
Radical Surrender, Letting Go in a World Addicted to Control.
And it's November what?
November 10th.
November 10th. That's so exciting.
Nice.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
you.
Let's hit the applause over there. There we go.
Shout out to Billy.
Wow, the
He's
crowd's
excited.
gone wild.
Not yet.
Not yet, Billy. So go ahead.
Eager beaver.
Yeah.
So the Castro Country Club is a safe and sober community center for all people and a refuge for the LGBTQ recovery community.
Yes, we provide programs and services that help change lives by supporting personal growth.
And our vision is to reduce the suffering of addiction by connecting people to community opportunity and support.
You can find more information, including all the ways to contact us, at www.castrocountryclub.org/podcast.
Yes, and check out new episodes every Monday to Thursday.
Whenever Brandon does it, yeah.
Thank
All right.
you. We
Thank
love you.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.